The Never Never Track is located 440 kilometres northeast of Alice Springs, on the northern edge of the Simpson Desert. Here you'll find Lindsay, Bookie's country, an Arenda man who grew up around Tobermory. Lindsay is custodian of a 7,000 square kilometre area across to the Queensland border. Lindsay is keen to share his culture, and with the assistance of his friend, Joel Fleming of Direct 4-Wheel Drive, offers intrepid travellers the chance to explore this patch of wilderness under their guidance. The track from Lindsay's camp, which has all mod cons, starts out as a super sandy desert highway, but soon dwindles. Vision is bounded on one side by a stretch of dune, and on the other side by a trail of trees and coral sand that is the Hay River. Each trip is visually different. Here, the rain a couple of weeks ago has brought out the wildflowers. The desert is full of roaming camels brought in by explorers and early settlers. Our isolation is visited by a curious busted bird, and budgerigars swoop overhead. Dingoes flicker into view before disappearing back into the foliage. Lake Caroline is a special place. A series of flat clay pans in breakaway country reach through a crossing down the soft sands of the Hay River, past the Soak, where Lindsay tells us the Soak is where water can be reached if you dig long enough, and past the mid with its treasure trove of flints and chips from an older culture. The track to Mount Bookie has barely been travelled by Europeans since the explorers came through in the 1800s. Its condition reflects this roller coaster ride in country that belongs to the Aboriginal people, bush turkeys, camels, kangaroos.
We've just left Lake Caroline turn off, and we're now heading over towards Mount Nucky on roughly a northeast heading. The track across to Mount Nucky is about 60 kilometres, and it pretty well follows a straight line course. The vegetation is pretty light, and it's pretty easy driving. The country's very, very remote. It's, as far as I know, hasn't been visited by white people since the days of the explorer Winnicky and possibly Lindsay back in the late 1800s. And so the people coming across here today are probably the first white people that have been through here for over a century.
Making camp at Mount Nucky for a couple of nights gives Lindsay a chance to show off one of the highlights of his country. Soils pounded solid by waters millions of years old form the ancient ridgeline, which is the backdrop to the camp. Here, a chance to sit around the fire and yarn after a few challenging hours driving is most welcome. Sometimes bush tucker, bush turkey or kangaroo, cooked traditional way, is on offer. Lindsay's pride in his country and his ancestry shines through his quiet manner as he tells the story of his mother's grandfather who cut into this tree with a stone axe in pursuit of food like lizards and grubs.
Yeah, they cut it. Stone axe. Cut that. Yeah, get that one.
some seasons, depending on the weather, Mount Bookie boasts waterholes. Regardless, the mountain is impressive in its rocky structure. Its caves sheltering bats and lizards, and the gullies where in an older time people used hard stone to scrape their symbols and art into the softer rock surface of the hillside. Our return trip was rewarded by a much-needed shower at Lindsay's camp after travelling between 400 and 500 kilometres of country whose isolation offers travellers a chance to get close to the indigenous people of the Simpson Desert as they experience the impact of the remote red centre, the howling of the dingoes under the sky overflowing with stars, and the challenges of driving the Never Never track.